Hi, somebody just put in a comment. Thank you. I think my mic was on mute. So you should be able to hear me. Rochelle, if please maybe confirm that. But yeah, here I am. I've been talking for a minute or two. And yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. If you are hearing, please confirm that I'm speaking. And you can also write in your name, say who you are, where your farm's from, any of that kind of stuff. And perfect, Rachel. I'm glad that you hear me. So welcome to this afternoon. It's been quiet lately, and I've been thinking about getting back into doing live farmer spreadsheet tips on Thursday afternoons. So it's like something I did for a while, and I also wanted to match that with setting you up for your online store. And yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I asked folks about, in terms of moving your online store, where you're at and whether you wish, perfect. I'm glad to see, Alyssa, that you can hear me. It's good to know that I'm not into the void. And so to find out whether people were at a point where they were still trying to figure out how to get their online store up and running, or if they're at a point where they wanted to know more how to manage it in terms of their farm and integrate it into their weekly farm planning. And there was a big split. And what I'm going to focus on today is turning your online orders into a harvest list. And there's a few ways you can do that. So you could have some kind of app that's integrated into your system to do that. And they exist. I'm not going to go that route here. I'm going to be looking at how to export your information as a CSV file, and then taking that information and manipulating in spreadsheets and figuring out what you want to do with that. You know, if you have an app that you love, that's fantastic. But there's other ways that you can do this information, and it's really great to have the capacity to do that. So I'm going to start off with a presentation, walking through the different steps of it, and then I'm going to jump into some live spreadsheets. So here we go. We're talking about turning Shopify. And so I'm going to use, specifically in these slides, I'm going to be talking about online stores using Shopify. And the basic concept applies to most online store platforms. Most online store platforms, you can export all your orders as a CSV and do the same things that I'm doing right here. It's possible some of the columns have different numbers, some of the stuff's in different order, but it's going to all be there. And but I need to use something for an example, so I'm going to use a Shopify store. Also, that's what we use the most. So it's easiest for me to jump into. Okay, so when you log into your dashboard on Shopify, you look at something like this, and on the far left, it says orders. If you click there, you're going to get to a screen that's going to show you a summary of all your orders. Now, there's a lot of information that's already here, and this is what you want to export into your system. So you can see, you know, there's the order number, the date it was placed, the customer and total. I've kind of blanked those out to keep some privacy to our business and to these clients. Whether it was paid or not. So in this case, some are paid and some are still payment pending. If you've set up to accept e-transfers or cash or check at pickup, that would be payment pending if you haven't paid yet. If they're just taking credit cards, then it'll probably all be paid. And then there's a section on fulfillment. So unfulfilled means you haven't shipped it. Fulfilled means it's already shipped. There also is partial fulfillment. Is what they call it, partial fulfillment, I think, when some of the items have shipped, if you're doing it partially. But in most cases, if you're having people pick up on a farm drop off, or a farm store, they're going to be all fulfilled at once. And the more you can avoid partially fulfilled orders, the less of a headache. Now, there's something I didn't get in here, but there's also a column for shipping methods. And the shipping methods that you might choose in this case, when you're setting up your shipping methods, it would probably be where people are picking up from. Are they picking up from your farm? Are they picking up from a drop-off point somewhere else? Maybe the date is part of the shipping method. So all those things were also listed. Now, to get that information, there's a column on the far left, and you can choose individual orders, or you can click the little box on the top, and it'll select everything that's there. And then, but one thing to note about that is that it's also selecting orders that are fulfilled. And so likely fulfilled means it's already been dealt with, so you don't need to worry about it anymore. And you might not want to see those. So there's also on your dashboard, a little bit higher up, above, close to the search bar, there's a section called this fulfillment status. If you click on that, you'll see a menu will appear. And there you could choose to only see the unfulfilled orders. Now, there's a lot of ways you can filter your orders like this, but this way, this is specifically based on fulfillment. You can also just place that you can filter by payment status and then other aspects of your orders. So you can see all that's unfulfilled. One thing in Shopify, I don't know about other platforms. One thing that's annoying in Shopify is you can't filter by shipping method. That would be really fantastic, but you can't here. However, where we're going to go next, you can. Or what we're going to do next, you're going to be able to do that. So you could select the unfulfilled, and it's going to filter out immediately. So if you see here, there's the third order from the top is fulfilled. When you click unfulfilled, that one disappears, and you're no longer seeing it. Now you could select that what am I going for? Yeah, so you could select the orders that you want to see at this point, checking the box on the far left or individual ones, and then bringing out the dashboard a little bit more. On the far right, there's a button that says up top right, a button that says export. If you click on that, you're going to get another set of options, and with that you can choose to export the whole page. You can choose to export all the orders. You could choose to, in this case, you may probably be selecting the 50 orders or the 50 plus orders matching your search, the one just beneath that. You probably choose one of those two. I guess you would choose the one 50 plus orders matching your search, and then you export it as a CSV for Excel, Numbers, or other spreadsheet programs. A plain CSV file would probably work also, but what I've exported the first option, and then you're going to click on Export Orders, and that is going to you're going to export then your file, all the orders that you've chosen as a CSV, and you can put them on your desktop in a folder somewhere, so it'll probably give you one of two options. If there's a few orders that you're choosing to export, it'll probably just let you export it immediately. In some cases, when it's a really big batch of orders, it will ask you or it'll send them as an email to you, and then you receive the file as an email, and then you can download it onto your computer from there. So that's one of those two will happen, but in the end, you're going to have your file downloaded on your desktop. Now, the next thing you'll do is you'll open a Google Sheet. So I'm going to use Google Sheets as a spreadsheet here. We can use any spreadsheet system to do this. Google Sheets, though, works really well with CSV files. Excel doesn't always work well with CSV files. So Google Sheets is an easy one in this case. So you have your file, and then on the top left in the menu bar, you choose under File. You can click there. You get a drop-down menu, and then it says Import. You can click on Import, and it's going to bring you to a place where you import your file. So you could choose Upload, and then you'll get to a file where you upload your file. So you could drag the file there, or you could click on it and go to the specific folder and bring it up. And once you've chosen that, you'll select your file from your device. Once you've chosen that, you'll get this menu or this screen. So one thing it'll show is the name of the file. So orders underscore export.csv is sort of the default that Shopify exports things as. And if you didn't rename it at export, that's what it would look like. But you could also have renamed it, and you have a different name there. Next up, you're going to choose the import location. And so when you click on that, you'll get a few different options. And what we're going to do right now is append to current sheet. You could also do replace data at selected cell if you're using a sheet that already has information, you want to override it, but otherwise you'd be appending the data to the current sheet. And then when you chose that, the option is there. You don't have to worry about the separator type. It'll detect it automatically, and then you'll click import data. And so this is just bringing that CSV file into your sheet. And when you do that, it's going to show up, and you're going to have your cells, again, a bunch of information in it. And there's actually quite a bit of information. Like if you were to look at the whole thing, these are all the columns that are in here from, it's about 10 orders. And so it's a lot of information that's in there. If you've ever exported one of these and looked at it, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to walk you through some of the steps or some of the different types of information in here, and what's valuable to you and what isn't valuable to you. So we'll look at it piece by piece. So the first thing is the name, and this is actually the order number or the invoice number. However you identify invoices in Shopify or your store, there'll be an invoice number. And you'll see here, there's two groups of text that I've put in color. These are different orders. So in the first case, the order, which I think is 0261690 at the end, this is an order that has one item. So there's one item, one row. And then later on row 10, there's another batch of purple with the same name number, which is the same invoice number and the same email. These are all the items of another order. And so the way that Shopify and most online store platforms export the information is they have a different line for each item on the order. And then they'll have one column, which is usually the name or an invoice or an ID of some sort, that is the same on all those rows, and that's what links them together. Now, one thing to note here is the first row has a bunch of extra information, and then the other rows are blank, at least at this part, at the beginning. And so that first row will have stuff like your address or their address, their shipping, their billing address, information about whether it's paid or not. And the other rows won't have that same information repeated. Those other rows will just have the data related to each of the specific orders, each of the specific items orders, which we'll look at in a moment. So I've highlighted the columns that are of more interest to us in what we're going to do. So the first column we've already looked at. It was the name. The next one, is the client's email. It's trying to figure out if you want to contact them. And then there's the financial status. So that's whether they're paid or whether it's still pending. Then there's the fulfillment. So fulfilled means it's already been shipped. Unfulfilled means it hasn't been shipped. If you scroll down further, there's I've put down in green some other places that are interesting. And this is stuff that's related to actually what you're going to be fulfilling, or what they've ordered. So this column is the line item name. So that's the name of the product as you put it in Shopify. And that's actually what they're ordering. And so what you're gonna be picking or packing or harvesting to put in a box or in a bag for them or a container. And then there's also the SKU, the SKU, that's the stock keeping unit. That's the product code. You may or may not have one. If you have one, it'll pop up there. If not, it'll probably be a blank column. Then there's, Then there's the price per item that you charge. At this point, it doesn't really matter anymore unless you're doing some kind of financial analysis here, but that's something that you would have charged in the beginning. And then how much of each item did the order? Now that's an important part of it. So it's that in the name that we're really interested in. A little bit further along, if you scroll, there's also this column of outstanding. And this is if they haven't paid, how much they owe you, which can be of interest. We're not going to look at that today, but that's another place of interest in these columns. The other columns all say something of value, but they're a little bit of noise for most of what you'd be doing with or working with. So now we're going to go back and look at kind of the order. And so let me just, okay. So one challenge that we have is, one challenge we have is these blank cells in the rows. And when we're looking things up, it's easy to see that it's already fulfilled, or there's also actually something we didn't, did I skip over that? Okay, one place I think I skipped over to is there's also you have your shipping method as one of the columns. That's something else that's really important. Your shipping method is one of the columns too that you want to know, and that's because that's where you're sending stuff. So the shipping method is when you're sending stuff. The quantity is how much you're sending, and the name is what you're sending in that quantity. And then there's also who it's being sent to. So the shipping method, the fulfillment status, and the financial status only show up on the first line. They don't show up on the other lines. So when you're creating a report based on this information, it won't capture that. So the first thing we'll do before we analyze the information or we extract a harvest list is we're going to add in a couple columns to the left of where we imported the information that replicate that info, but on all the lines. So here in the beginning, the payment status, so it shows all those purple lines which are paid. It replicates the word paid on all of them. So there's nothing that's empty. And yeah, you can see that here. So on the right in the little red rectangle, you can see some lines in the financial status are blank. So on the left, we want them to not be blank. We want them to be able to see them all. And then there's the fulfillment status, and then there's the farm pickup, which is a little bit further down, but it would have only been on the top row of each order. And here we want to see it down the line. And so I've created two different shipping methods for this example. One is Farm Thursday. So maybe on Thursday, pick up at the farm. And the other one is elsewhere on Tuesday. So maybe it's a school parking lot or a grocery store parking lot or wherever you're set up. And it can be more shipping methods, probably have specific names, but those are the two that I'll be using in this example. So with your data and then adding these columns, then it's just a matter of treating this information like a spreadsheet, and you can create reports using some if formulas or filter formulas, but also using pivot tables. And if you've seen some of my other videos, some of my other work, you know the power of a pivot table, and we'll draw on that as the main way that we're going to look at this information. So I'm going to jump into some spreadsheets. This is the address if you want to download them at home. You can get the spreadsheet straight up. If you want to join my newsletter at the same point, I send out a weekly email. You're welcome to join up there, but you don't have to join the email to get the spreadsheets. Though if you do jump into the spreadsheets, make sure you keep an eye on the screen here, because this is where the action is going to take place if you want to see what's happening. So I'm going to change my screen and go into the spreadsheets. And so so up to now, we've just been looking at a slide presentation, walking through the different stuff. Now this is a live spreadsheet action that we have. And I want to start off by showing you how I've brought this information into the far corners on the left. And actually, while I'm here, I'm just going to scroll down so we can just see the shipping methods too. So there is this column here that said shipping methods, and you can see each row is a different. So this is a specific order on rows 6 through 12, and that's the shipping of that specific place. So here, I'm going to look that up. I'll start by doing it for the financial status. And so there's an index match formula is what I've used. I'm going to delete the one that's already here, and I'll show us how we look at it. So there are two ways that I like to look information up when I'm referencing things: using index match when I'm dealing with words, or sum if in many situations when I'm using with numbers. This is words, so right away we'll use index match. There are always other tools, but these are the basic ones. And so to do that, I'll write equals index with an X, open parentheses, and then I'm going to highlight the column, which is F, where I want the answer to come from. And then I do comma, and then I'm going to do match. And now I'm looking up the specific row or place that I'm getting the information from. So I'm going to look up column, it's an opposite order of sum if. So I want to find D2. I want to find this invoice in a specific place. So if I push comma, I'm looking for everything that has this invoice in column D, or the first incidence of this invoice in column D. And then I'll do comma, and then I'm going to write 0, which is 0 means I want to find the exact match. I don't want something approximative. If I leave that 0 off, if I just end it here, it'll find the next best thing. I want the best thing, not the next best thing. So close parentheses for the match, close parentheses for the index. And so I'll push enter, and it shows the word paid. So what it's done is it's looked up in F, or it's looked up in D, something that has, it's looking for this invoice number, the TS30 26190 in column D, and if it finds it, the first row it finds it, and it's going to go look in this column and choose the word that's there, which is paid. So if I were to change this to something else, if I was to change this to broccoli, that'll show up as broccoli over there. So now I can drag this formula down, and it shows up everywhere. And I don't have to worry about anchoring it when I'm dragging it down, because so anchoring is use dollar signs to make things so they don't move, which is not a case in this situation, because everything is staying in column A, and I actually want it to change the number here as I go down. So I'll just drag this down here, and it shows me the words pop up. Now I've just frozen the top line so we can scroll like this. Now I'll just reiterate what I'm saying about anchoring, because it might be a bit confusing. If I were to drag this formula over to here, I don't see anything, and there's a couple reasons for it. One is, so here it says it's looking in column F. Now it's looking in column G, but also it's looking for the item E in column E, which it's going to show up something that's here. And so what I would like it to do is I want it to have the same information. So I would anchor by putting a dollar sign. A dollar sign. Let me do that again. I'm going to anchor it by clicking on it and putting a dollar sign in front of the D here. And so that'll keep that information the same when I pull it over. So if I pull it over here, I still don't see anything because it's looking up column G, which actually has nothing in it. It's found nothing there. If I pull it over one more, it finds the word fulfilled, which is the next item in H. So here, I want it to be column H, and then and so it shows fulfilled. Oh, I should have clicked on autofill. I'm going to just bring it down, fill that information, and then this is looking at column R. So that's an index match formula which looks this information up, and now I can see everything, the paid, fulfilled, and pickup for each of these information, each of these orders. So these are all the same order. This is all the same order, and then this is all the same order, and so forth. Actually, this should be in the same colors here. And to just reiterate, this formula is really important the way it's set up. And if you were to sort this information, so you don't want to change the information as it comes out here, because let's say you put this word in, so I'm going to just put this in yellow, which is an F6. If I brought this down to F7 and I delete it here, all that information disappears because it's looking for the first incidence of this invoice number in D. And when it goes over here and looks at that, it sees nothing. So we want to just leave the information the way it's coming out of the spreadsheet, as opposed to highlighting this whole information and sorting it for something, like sorting using the sort range feature. Because we don't want to do any data analysis on this sheet here. We're just using this as a reference that we're going to look at. So the next thing that we'll do is we're going to click on the little square, the left of A and the top of 1. We're going to click on that, and then it highlights everything. We'll click on data, and then we're going to go down to pivot table, and it says create a pivot table, do new sheet. And so it shows us this information here. So if you've never done a pivot table, prepare to have your mind blown and see a whole new way of seeing data. So what we're going to do, and so you can do a lot of stuff here. In this case, we want to create a harvest list, so make sure that we're harvesting everything for this date. So we can go to pivot table. The rows are the crops that we want to see. And so down here, if we scroll down, the rows are the crops are called line item name. Such a beautiful name for a crop. And so under rows, I'm going to scroll down until I find line item name. And now it shows all those crops that are in those sheets. And it just shows them once each. The next thing is the columns. That's at the top. So this is the pivot table editor on the right. That's where I chose this line item name. The other thing is columns. I'm going to add. So for columns, what am I going to do? I'm going to add the pickup from the first columns that I put in. So that's, I know it's right, it's Shopify data. That's over here. It's this column here, see? So it's showing me the options in there. And then for the values, I'm going to add, it's line item quantity. So that's in the Shopify data over here. How many of each item do we need? And so on this pivot table, so this is a little bit hard to look at. So I'm going to click on 2 to highlight it all. And then I'm going to click on more. Click on this little funny thing, text wrapping, and I'm wrapping the text. And then I'm not going to alternate things. I'm going to bring this in, and because the text is wrapped, it goes on to 2 lines. Actually, I could do that I'm going to bring everything in. Now, there's this funny column D that says hashtag N/A. This is an error message, and it's basically all these error messages down here that are showing up. And we don't want to see those. And so they correspond to places wherever there's no invoice that's looking up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter them out. So you can filter them out by going into the pivot table editor to the bottom, filters, add name, and I can show all items. And when I do that, I could filter out the blank here, but that's actually not a good way to do it. It's better to go to filter by condition and then click none, and then do, not none, but click where it said none and then choose is not empty. And so it's going to filter out anything where the name, where it's going to show us only what isn't empty in that invoice number. So I click enter, and those numbers disappeared. So here, this is essentially what we're looking for. You now have a harvest list of what you need, or a pick list of what you need to send to market, or not to market, or what you need to pull to fulfill the orders that are in your basket or in your online store. Sorry. So people have placed online orders in your system to be picked up at one of these 2 drop-offs. And there's a bunch of different orders. And this sheet here shows how much of each item you need to pick so that you can then pack those boxes. So here you need 4 half-pound bags of arugula. Let's go look at what that looks like in the Shopify data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze this over to here, and I'm going to hide the A and B. Okay, so we can see the pickup and we can see the invoice name, and we're just going to scroll down, and we've gotten to over here is the line item number and the quantity. One thing you notice is these little upside down triangles. That's something that I'm just going to get rid of them, and I'm going to add them back in. So if I highlight the top row, and on the right side of the menu bar, there's a little funnel. If I click it, says create a filter, it pops those up. Now, if I click on that, it shows me everything here, and I'm going to clear the items, and I only want to see the arugula half-pound bags. So the arugula half-pound bag shows up here, and I can see that this first row is, maybe I'll put it in a different color, is being picked up at the farm, and this third row is being picked up at the farm, and then the other 3 are being picked up elsewhere on Tuesday. And so I need 2 half-pound bags for this order and 2 for here, so 4 total. So when I go to that pivot table, that's what it says, 4 total of half-pound bag. Well, 4 total for farm on Thursday, and then 4 total for elsewhere on Tuesday. And so the elsewhere is also 1 + 2 + 1. So by coincidence, it also comes to 4. And so we're seeing this same information presented in a different way. I'm just going to undo these things I've added to make it look clearer. Okay, so here you have, this is excuse me, this is your your harvest list. And I've also set it up over here too. This is already pre-set up, the same information. So I'm going to delete this pivot table, and I'm going to leave the one that was already here. Maybe I will wrap those headers. Did I wrap them? Wrap those headers, and then just make it a bit smaller. And so here we have that. And then there's also another way you can look at this information. So let's say we could duplicate this pivot table. And so right here, we have the pickup locations are at the top, and then the items on here. So if the column, if I drag it from pickup and I bring it to the beginning, it reorganizes information to show on elsewhere on Tuesday, I need these items and this quantity, which is what I have here, the pivot pickup list. So there's different ways that you can show that information. You could also add in, if you wanted to, the name, or when it says a name, that's the invoice number. So this invoice number here has these items. You could also add the person's email if you want to have that close at hand. Let's put that before the line item name. So you can do all kinds of different things in these sheets. But what you're trying to do is you basically want to have a way that you see what you need to pick. And so this harvest list, let me get rid of this extra one. This pivot harvest list does show you what you need to do for you to pick to this. So you could add it to whatever else you're harvesting that day. And I mean, this is based on 7 or 8 orders that are I created, some pretend orders for this Shopify data, but you could also have it be 20, 30, 400 orders, and it'll be the same process. And you can have 2 drop-offs or 6 drop-offs or pickups, however you name them, to show up. And so any of those, so all that information works out, and you can analyze it the way that you want to see it. There is one last thing, or maybe 2 more things I want to show, but they're basically using the filters. So over here, if you had exported all the information and you had some orders, like this order here is already listed as fulfilled, and you didn't, so is the bottom one. These orders, even though they're listed as fulfilled, they're showing up in here. If you had filtered them out in the Shopify dashboard and exported only what was unfulfilled, you won't see this. But if you exported everything, then you will see it. But you could, and this place in the pivot harvest list, you could go in the filters on the far right. You could add the fulfilled status, and you could choose to uncheck fulfill and the error message, and you'll only see what is unfulfilled. So you saw when I clicked that, those numbers disappeared. Or I could also see what's already been fulfilled, and it changes that we've already fulfilled 2 arugula bunches, 3 beets, and 1 kale. Now, one thing to note about this is if anything that you change in Shopify, if you've already exported your data and you have it in here, if you change things in Shopify, this CSV file is independent. It's a snapshot of what you exported when you did the export. At this point, if you want something that's dynamic, or no, it's not. If you want that new information, you have to export a new file and then go in and add it into a sheet like this. And then the last thing I'm going to show. Oh, I just see my face. Is my face sticking over there? I'm going to just no. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm gonna Okay. I guess, sorry. I think that when I made myself disappear, I went mute. I apologize for that. What I'm gonna, okay, I'll go back to what I have just done. Yeah, this is the first time I use this. I'm broadcasting right now, both on my Farmer Spreadsheet Academy YouTube page and also on my on this Facebook group. So I'm using an app called Restream to do that. And it's the first time I do it. So I'm discovering the little thing. So I guess when my video disappears, it mutes me. So I'm not 100% sure where I disappeared, but what I'm doing right now, what I've been doing while I've been saying nothing, has been to look at the specific, and look at the billing name. So this is the people who've ordered orders, and I'm looking at who still has outstanding amounts. So 0, 22, or otherwise. So who's paid or not. And so here I've kept let me just restart this. I've kept the pickup name, and I'm going to add in the pivot editor, I'm going to scroll down to where it says billing name, and there's some empty spots in there. I don't want to see those empty spaces. Those are from the empty lines in the different orders. So I don't want to see that. So I'm going to add a filter on the bottom that is for billing name, and I'm going to click a condition which is not empty, and I'll push OK. And so now I only see the places with order names. And maybe I also want to add the invoice number, which is the field called name. I'm going to unclick where it says show totals because I don't want all those total lines. And then the values would be how much is owed. And so if I scroll down to where it says outstanding balance, and then there's a bunch of ones that shows as count A of outstanding balance. I don't want the count, I want the sum. So in the pivot editor, I'll click sum, and it shows me the amount. So Charlotte owes me nothing. And then these people owe this amount. These people owe this amount. And you could also go on there and you could, here, so in Canadian dollars, you could also format it with, let's just take that off for now. Or we could actually go to the spreadsheet settings. I tend to use spreadsheet settings set in the US because then I don't have the dollar sign in front of it. So it's just refreshing. We'll come back to that same page. I'm going to make it big again. And here I highlight with the dollar sign. So this could be a checklist when people show up. As they take their order, I could check it off. And also if they owe any outstanding amount, I could collect that at the same time. So that's another thing you can do with this data. And I add this in because I know it's not a harvest list, but it shows that there's all kinds of information that you can export when you export all your orders. And you can get that, and then you can manipulate it to make different kinds of lists, which can be really useful in managing what you're doing. So this brings me to the end of what I wanted to walk you through. I don't know if you have any questions or thoughts about this. So please type in any questions if you have them. But so this was done with Shopify data. If you have other online stores, most of them let you export all your orders in a CSV file that looks fairly similar to this. And that probably has empty information, like that shows different rows with for each item that you have with some blank space. And you can use the index match, as I showed in these yellow columns, to fill up, to kind of create an area that has no blank space. So you can then pivot and look up information that way. And with the pivot table, you can create the reports you need if you understand what the different columns are. So just spend a little bit of time with your different CSVs and you'll find that. Yeah. And so with this now, you're ready so if you get your orders over the week, so just a bigger meta management, it's probably good to have a deadline by when people need to order. And then when the deadline comes, maybe you shut down your store or put your quantities to 0. like on our farm, people can order, I think it's from Wednesday through Friday when we're taking extra orders. And then Friday at noon, we shut down, we put all the quantities to zero, or we unpublished a collection that has those items so people can't order anymore. And we export the CSV file, and then we know, we actually use a few other techniques, but basically we basically we export the information, and then we can tell what we need to harvest the following week on Monday and Wednesday for our Tuesday and Thursday pickups. And so by having those hard deadlines, it makes it so that you don't have information coming in after you've already started to prepare your harvest lists. And then on Monday, you harvest your stuff for Tuesday, and then Wednesday, harvest stuff for Thursday in our specific form. Alyssa mentions the e-commerce platform you use provides a downloadable pick list, which is one of the reasons you went with them. But it's good to know that it's really easy to create your own if we decide to switch platforms in the future. I'd love to know, did you go with Local Line, or is there another platform that you went with? I'm really curious. Yeah, because there have been a couple. Now there are starting to be some e-commerce platforms specific for farmers, and I think that's a really great thing to see in this space. And if we were new in as a farm, maybe we'd choose something like that. We've been using Shopify for a number of years, so that's what we've chosen to stay with, and are choosing to adapt to our needs. But if ever you're in a situation where your e-commerce platform isn't meeting your needs for different reasons, whether it's reliability or customization of something, we're in a time where there really is a great flexibility. So you do use Local Line. That's exciting. I hope you're having a great success with it, and that it sets you up well for the summer. So so this was wrapping up this first in a while live spreadsheet tip, and something I'm hoping to start doing again. I'm planning on at least next Thursday being here at 2 p.m. and I've got some ideas of stuff to share, but I'm always looking for other ideas. So if you have any burning spreadsheet questions or farm management questions that you think a spreadsheet would help, you feel free to fill out this form. I set up a form at spreadsheet.farm/questions to collect questions, and these might make it into a future spreadsheet tip. Thank you so much for spending this afternoon with me. The question, will this be available to watch later? Yeah, it's going to be as soon as this finishes, it's going to be available as a recording as a recorded Facebook Live on the Move Your Farm Store online Facebook group. That's quite a name. I think I'm going to repost it onto the YouTube channel, so it's available, and you can look at it, and you can look at it at the speed that's appropriate for you. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope this walks you through some great place for farm success. Actually, one thought that comes to me regarding your question, your comment, Alyssa, sorry, about how you get a pick list from your Local Line, and that's fantastic. But there might be some types of stuff that isn't in there, and I believe that with Local Line you can probably also export all your orders as a CSV. So you could if you're trying to track, like, I don't know what you'd be trying to do, but there might be something specific that you're trying to figure out. Then you can. So Alyssa, you did mention, right? I was thinking your farm name, and not your person name, but yeah. So you can. So that's an example of labels. Maybe we could do that in a future video or figure something out there. But having that CSV does create the opportunity to use that information somewhere else. That's something that's not custom to that specific platform. So it's nice to have access to that data. And that's something that wasn't as easy to find in all spreadsheet e-commerce platforms 10 years ago, but I'm really thrilled that it's become pretty standard that almost everybody lets you export your orders as CSV files. Thank you so much for spending this afternoon, and have a fantastic week, and happy spreadsheets, happy farming, and take care.